Hi, I'm Julie Brown. I teach English at Clatsop Community College, and I'm just here to give you a very brief overview of some of the more popular monsters that appear in Celtic stories and mythology. This is Evertech, a character who comes from Ireland, and he is often compared to a vampire because some of the qualities of his personality kind of imitate that of a vampire. He's an evil character who has magical powers, and he's a dwarf. He drinks blood and he's quite malevolent. He's hard to kill. You kill him and bury him, and then he springs back to life. If you bury him upside down with his head down in the ground, you might have a better chance, but truly the only way you can actually kill him for good is to stab him with a wooden sword. In Ireland, there's a figure called Baelor of the Evil Eye. He's a demon in Irish folklore who has evil spirits in his eyes to where he can cast a spell on you or a curse with his magical eyeball. This is a banshee, also from Ireland. They're female spirits, sometimes portrayed as being old and wearing a shroud, sometimes being portrayed as young and beautiful wearing a white dress. What they're all known for is wailing and shrieking all night long, which is where we get the expression screaming like a banshee. Ireland has a character called Dullahan, and he's a fairy who rides about on a black horse, and he's headless. If he calls your name, watch out, you'll drop dead on the spot. The most famous figure in Irish folklore would be the leprechaun, of course. He's known to love a drink. He's quite greedy for treasure, and he's very tricky, and he can't be trusted. We learned about him in one of our fairy tales. In some areas of Ireland, there are figures called man-wolves, which are basically werewolves. They're shapeshifters that can go back and forth between a man or a wolf form, and they're known to be very fierce, very amazing warriors. And if a chief needs help, he can call upon these man-wolves to help him in battle. They're known to be fierce fighters. Ireland was at one time completely covered by packs of wolves. Not anymore. In Ireland, there's a rich folklore culture of fairies, and Queen Mab is their queen. She's thought to be very beautiful and a seductive presence. Um, the poet Yeats wrote a lot of poems about her. Over in Scotland, there's a character called the Black Donald. He's actually a version of the devil, and he wears all black clothes. He comes disguised as an old man, but you'll know who he is because he can't wear shoes because he has cloven hooves like Satan. He's very good at all jobs except tailoring. And of course, we read about him in one of the Scottish fairy tales that we read last week. Brownies in Scotland are one word that they use for fairies. They're a particular kind of fairy. They wear brown clothes and they love to help people out with their housework. They're thought to be helpful, benevolent fairies, wee folk, but if you ignore them, they can get mad. So you have to be sure that you leave little treats out for them. Kelpies in Scotland are also shapeshifters. They're a type of water horse, a horse that lives in the water, but they can change their shape into the shape of a man so they can fool you. And one of the things they enjoy doing is drowning people. Scotland's most famous monster is probably this one, the Loch Ness Monster. Loch is the Scottish word for a lake, and Ness is the name of this particular lake where this monster was first seen by a missionary, actually, Columba, who was visiting Scotland in 565 AD, and he later became a saint. This photograph was taken in, I think, 1934 and was proven later to be a hoax. Scotland has a culture of Selkies that are seal spirits, and they also can shapeshift into human form, quite often female, And when they're on land, they gain legs, and they will sometimes trick human men into marrying them. But when they go back into the water, they're selkies or seals once again. The flag in Wales features a dragon, the Welsh dragon, which is based on the idea that Arthur had a dragon on his banner that he would fly into battle. And it's thought that perhaps if an Arthur type of character did have a dragon on his flag, that this would be a remnant from the Romans who visited a couple thousand years ago. Morgans are Welsh water spirits that like to drown men also. You see kind of a pattern here developing. Giants found in all of the Celtic cultures and all Celtic mythology, and were often used as explanations for things that otherwise didn't make sense. For example, if you saw Stonehenge and you didn't know that it had been built by your ancestors, you might just assume that giants had put the rocks there. In Northern Ireland, there's a big pile of very interesting rocks on the shoreline that are referred to as the Giant's Causeway. There's a church in Wales that has this stained glass window featuring a figure that's known as a green man, who is covered with leaves and ivy and things like that. He's usually portrayed as being bright green, but in this window, obviously not. Thank you for listening to my brief PowerPoint introduction to Celtic monsters. I'd like to always cite my sources, and thank you to these artists who take the time to upload their artwork, drawings, and images of Celtic folklore. Thank you.